Good morning. Thank you for joining us. My name is Camille Romaine. I am the manager of social work for the Henry Ford Cancer Institute. On behalf of the team here at the Henry Ford Cancer Institute, I would like to welcome all of our cancer survivors, caregivers, family, and loved ones to our second Cancer Survivorship Celebration live stream event, Nature Can Heal. June is a time to reflect and celebrate the journey you and your loved ones bravely face. Navigating a cancer diagnosis during a global pandemic has required you to dig deeper and fight harder. Your providers and care teams here at the Henry Ford Cancer Institute recognize the toll this journey can have on overall well being. We chose the theme Click Refresh for your celebration this year to provide you with opportunities to engage in programs specifically curated to recharge and refresh your mind and your body. Here today to introduce our speaker is Dr. Lisa Rogers, neuro-oncologist at the Hermelin Brain Tumor Center and Henry Ford Cancer Institute. Dr. Rogers is a oncologist who trained in neurology at the Cleveland Clinic and completed her neuro-oncology fellowship at Memorial Sloan Kettering Center. She was on the staff at Henry Ford from 1999 through 2006, where she served as the director of the CNS Metastasis Program as a member of the Hermelin Brain Tumor Center. She joined the Henry Ford staff in 2010, coming from the university hospitals affiliated with Case Western University in Cleveland, where she was the director of medical neuro-oncology. She specializes in the evaluation and treatment of patients who have systemic cancer that is metastatic to the brain and leptomeninges. Dr. Rogers has a clinical interest in treating the neurological complications of cancer treatment, including memory loss that can be associated with brain radiation or chemotherapy, also known colloquially as chemobrain, neuropathy, and stroke. Dr. Rogers has expertise in the evaluation and treatment of patients with primary brain tumors and has participated in many clinical trials. She has experience in using the ketogenic diet to treat brain tumors and has extensive experience collaborating with other specialists to assist in brain imaging analysis to differentiate recurrent brain tumors from radiation. Dr. Rogers?
Thank you. It is really a pleasure for me to introduce to you Dr. Joseph Blanda, who recently retired as a very successful orthopedic surgeon in Akron, Ohio. In 2013, his 17-year-old son was diagnosed with a glioblastoma. He and his son spent a lot of time together in nature. And after the loss of his son, Dr. Blanda experienced the therapeutic benefit of spending time with nature. Motivated by his son's illness, Dr. Blanda's family set up a granting organization to support glioblastoma research, and $1.5 million, which have been granted to 4 encouraging projects. Most recently, he has now devoted his time to studying the health benefits of nature and sharing this passion with others. I recently heard one of his talks affiliated with the Cuyahoga Valley Nature Park, and I can say that I have not looked at a nature walk or even in my backyard the same way since. He speaks firsthand of the healing aspects of nature all around us, and I hope that his talk will provide you with new insights into this healing modality.
Well, greetings, everyone. My goal today is to help you understand how beneficial spending time in nature can be. And just what do I mean by nature? Well, it could be a walk in the park, could be enjoying a bird feeder in your backyard. And I'll get into more examples to try to give you ideas on how you can experience the therapeutic benefits of nature. So, what does a retired orthopedic surgeon know about oncology? And as Dr. Rogers just said, I have had my own journey with cancer through the loss of my son. Now, what am I going to talk about for the next 40 minutes? I'll briefly talk about my experience. I'll give you a brief summary of the history of nature and medicine. And we'll focus on the health benefits of spending time in nature. Not just the calming, soothing benefit of nature, but real health benefits to things such as your immune system and cardiovascular system, etc. And then lastly, and most importantly, I'm going to give you some examples of how you can use nature to experience these therapeutic benefits. So as John Muir said, well, in 2013, my then 17-year-old son was diagnosed with a terminal brain cancer. And he and I spent a lot of time out in nature before and after his diagnosis. And we both found it calming and therapeutic. 3 years later, after the loss of my son, I was struggling with depression and kind of burnt out from the stress of going through a cancer journey with my son. My family doctor said, "Oh, your cortisol levels have been out of whack for 3 years," and I had several bouts of infections such as bronchitis. Well, in a roundabout way, I got involved deeper with bird watching and decided to do what's referred to as a big year. Joe always teased me and told me that someday he and I would together do a big year in birding, even though I knew that wasn't going to happen because he wasn't that serious about it. But I did it. And that meant that on some 3-4 day weekends, I would travel to interesting places throughout the country to try to see as many different species of birds as I possibly could. And I did it as a fundraising effort to raise more money for our foundation. In other words, it was like a walkathon. I had some friends pledge money for each bird species I saw. And initially I thought, well, maybe I'll see 300 birds. And a lot of people pledged a dime, a quarter, and a few people pledged $1, which was a mistake for them because I ended up seeing 650 different species of birds. But more importantly, what I learned was that, as John Muir said, in every walk with nature, one receives far more than he seeks. Sorry, my clicker is a little slow and so my big year of birding really turned into somewhat of a spiritual experience. I had some unusual sightings. I saw some really rare birds. And most importantly, I found it extremely calming, extremely soothing. And to the degree that I really became more intrigued by the therapeutic benefits of nature. And as we're reminded by this quote, it's true that everything happens for a reason, but it is always our responsibility to choose the reasons. And so what I learned from my big year was that nature can really help. It helped me with healing from loss, and it can also give other therapeutic benefits. I found during that big year that I had less arthritis pain, And suddenly, I no longer came down with a common cold and bronchitis from being exposed to so many people in my medical practice. And so this motivated me to research the therapeutic benefits of nature, and I continue to do that. I also applied this idea to my patients in my orthopedic practice. A lot of them were stressed out from chronic pain or the stress of going through surgery. And what I found in some of the patients that I convinced to spend more time out in nature, they came back and said it really made them feel better. They dealt with their chronic pain better. I had some people lose some weight, and that too motivated me to do more uh, and to share my experience with people on the healing benefits of being out in nature. So, a brief history of the health benefits of nature. Back in the late 1800s, psychologists and psychiatrists started using nature to help in the management of tuberculosis. The whole concept of setting up sanitariums not only isolated these people, but they would do it in areas that had woodlots, and they found it very relaxing for these people. Fast forward to around the 1980s, a famous scientist here in the United States published books and articles about the concept he coined biophilia, which kind of means that people feel better when out in nature because that's where we evolved. Now, at the same time, over in Japan, a lot of people recognized the therapeutic benefit of being in nature, particularly from monks and people that practice meditation. And so they started the concept of forest bathing. Maybe you've read about it in some of the popular magazines out today. And Japan, South Korea, other Eastern countries really have advanced that technique to where they have special therapeutic walks in a lot of their parks. They have advanced college degrees in wilderness therapy, and some of those people go on to get good jobs as guides leading these walks out in nature. Around 2010, the first medical journal was published to describe some of the research being done on nature and the healing powers of nature. The journal's called Ecopsychology. And there have been about 1,000 scientific studies presented that show therapeutic benefits to spending time out. Now, a scientific study means that research was done, it was refereed by a group of physicians to really show that it was truthful and well done research before it's published in a medical journal. And so a lot of what I'm going to present today is information that's been published from medical journals. So what are these health benefits of nature? And unlike our past administration, believe the science. These are all concepts that have been published in well refereed medical journals. We know that being out in nature lowers the chance of being obese or also decreases the chance of becoming diabetic. We know that it's obviously very good in decreasing the incidence of depression or making it less severe, helping deal with anxiety. And in general, it just increases your well-being and happiness. Research has shown that there's less chance of hypertension or heart disease in people who spend time out in nature. There's less symptoms of attention deficit disorder, which is really critical with today's youth. With all the anxiety and all the new diagnoses of attention deficit, a lot of healthcare providers are starting to get young people to try to embrace nature and get outdoors. It's also been shown that time in nature decreases chronic pain. Now, what's important for you to understand is that there have been scientific studies done in a controlled fashion where they've tested blood levels of different chemicals in patients who spent time out in nature. And what they found was that there's an increase in a group of cells called natural killer cells. These are lymphocytes that help fight infection and help fight cancer. So it's been scientifically proven that spending time out in nature could be beneficial in our battle against cancer. And so how do these health benefits really come to play? The slide on the right shows you how complicated the body is and how things are related. And so there are different hormones and chemical regulators that can help create changes in our bodies that are very therapeutic. For example, spending time in nature has been shown to increase the natural killer cells, as I talked about, but it's also been shown to help increase levels of certain hormones that do things such as regulate how insulin is circulated in your body, which helps manage your blood sugar level. And as most of you probably know, your blood sugar level is related to cancer in that sugar feeds cancer. And there's some bench research that shows that increased amount of blood sugar might just stimulate cancer cells in our bodies. There's also been some interesting MRI studies where they've done functional MRIs where they could see actual increases in certain parts of your brain. And in a group of people who spent time out in nature, they showed certain parts of their brain were actually working more commonly, working more efficiently. And that too is another good proof that spending time in nature has health benefits. So in general, what does that mean? How does that affect you? Well, again, some of the studies show that if you have green space within 10 minutes of your house, you get these benefits. If you spend 20 minutes outside, whether it's a walk in the park or just out around some trees or wildflowers, you get these benefits. If you live near biodiversity, in other words, if you're close to birds and insects and plants, that's beneficial. There was an interesting study that showed of people with severe depression that they took some of those people and had them do gardening, and they compared them to a group of people who were taking heavy doses of antidepressant pills, and they found that the results were the same. Garden therapy seemed to work as good, at least as good, if not better than some of the antidepressants. It's an interesting study that shows that if you experience a wow moment, an aha moment in the outdoors, that you have a lower level of inflammatory markers in your body. And we do know that inflammation is part of just about every medical disease that we get, including cancer. And so if you can do something as simple as seeing an interesting bird in your yard or observing a spectacularly large tree and you get that wow moment, that could be therapeutic. Studies have shown that hospital rooms with a view resulted in patients recovering faster and having less complications. And so those are just some of the more pertinent studies on the therapeutic benefits of nature. Now, how does this apply to cancer patients specifically? Well, obviously, the mental health benefits, we've probably all experienced them from a nice walk in the park. But beyond that, I think it's really important for you folks to understand that spending time in nature can strengthen your immune system. And that's so critical in helping manage and treat cancer. As I said, it's been proven that Spending time in nature can decrease your inflammation process in your body, as well as to help stabilize blood sugar. So together, those are all very important in the journey against the fight for cancer management. So again, we've all experienced the mental health benefits, but I just want to mention the concept of mindfulness. As most of you may have experienced and know about mindfulness, that too has been proven to be beneficial in dealing with cancer. Perhaps one of the best examples of mindfulness is meditation, and focusing on meditation in your house, sitting in a dark space, for example, or sitting on a mat, can be really difficult. And some studies show that 70 to 80% of people who do indoor meditation don't stick with it. On the other hand, when you're out in nature and you become mindful of the bird you're seeing or become mindful of the gardening you're doing, that tends to become a life habit that sticks with you. And so practicing mindfulness in nature is a lot easier than doing traditional meditation. The other thing that can come out of experiencing nature is you can develop an optimistic attitude when you're around living species. And so, again, that kind of goes back to E.O. Wilson's concept of biophilia, that we're all connected to nature in different ways. And if you observe the wonders of nature and the life around you, that can give you that optimistic attitude that's so important in life, specifically for dealing with a chronic medical condition. And then lastly, nature's a great way to experience gratitude. In other words, if you plant a garden or if you plant a wildflower plot in your yard, you can feel good about that and be thankful that you're able to experience the benefits of doing those things. Now, just how does time in nature strengthen your immune system? What did they find in that research study? Well, as I mentioned, it shows an increase in the natural killer cells in your body, and these are lymphocytes, a type of cell that's really important to strengthening your immune system. We know lymphocytes respond to tumor formation and try to battle that and slow that down. And so these lymphocytes, these natural killer cells, they have the ability to recognize and kill cells that are abnormal, such as tumor cells or cells that have been stressed, these tumor cells that have been stressed by chemotherapy or immune therapy. So it's really important. It's one of the main points I want to make in my presentation. Time with nature can strengthen your immune system. We talked about how it can help control inflammation. When I see a hummingbird in my yard feeding on a plant that I planted from a seed, that gives me that wow moment. And it's a good type of medicine. Now, what can you do as someone who's dealing with cancer? Well, the one thing I want to stress to you is to do the traditional treatment. Don't go sit out in the woods and think that's as good as doing what your oncologist has prescribed. But beyond the traditional treatment, take an integrative approach to cancer. Learn about nutrition and the foods that help. Understand that exercise is important. Maybe you can talk to your oncologist. Are there certain supplements? Personally, I think it's best to get those phytonutrients from healthy foods you eat, but maybe your oncologist will have some suggestions for some supplements. Another important thing is to plan a maintenance program. In other words, if on your last visit all your tests come back normal, Well, yeah, it's nice to kind of put that behind you and forget about the cancer, but it's also important to have a maintenance program that maybe will help decrease the chance of recurrence. So continue to focus on nutrition, continue to focus on exercise, and make nature one of those important integrative parts on dealing with cancer. Now, I'm going to talk about how to create what I refer to as naturescapes, both at home, in your outdoor space, and in your indoor space. And by naturescape, I'll show you what I mean by that. Also, it's important to make time in nature a habit. You know, I admit I don't eat perfectly. I love chocolate chip cookies and pizza, but if 90% of the time I eat well, then I'm successful with my nutrition plan. So, with time in nature, I'm not suggesting that you're spending 4 or 5 hours outdoors in the park every day, but make it a habit. Try to get a little bit at least 3 times a week. And again, be aware of the concept of mindfulness and gratitude and how important those are in dealing with chronic disease, and how nature can be an avenue to let you practice mindfulness. So, what am I suggesting you do? We're going to talk about how to build a naturescape in your yard and in your home. And by having this naturescape, you get an easy, consistent access to nature. You can give yourself a daily dose of the medical benefits of nature. The other thing you can do is you can actually help improve on our current environmental problems. I'll talk a little bit about how this can, by creating a naturescape, you can do something good for the environment and again, feel good about that. And lastly, by building a naturescape, it gives you a hobby. It gives you something to be passionate about. And again, we do know from research that if you have a passion, that's healthy for you. And so this is another benefit of having a naturescape. And so my topic of my talk is Nature Can Heal, which is talking about the health benefits of being in nature. But also, nature can heal if we help it. If we do something good for our environment in your yard, nature can heal. In 1970, 1 out of 300 Americans were affected by cancer. And our government decided that was horrible. And they have since dumped billions and billions of dollars into research, and we have excellent research facilities. And so today, that number is not 1 in 300, it's 1 in 3. And so why is that? Why is cancer becoming so common? Well, in 1970 and today, the average age of being affected by cancer is about 55 years of age. And so in 1970, those 55 years, you were eating food that was grown on a clean farm that didn't spray Roundup on the fields. You were eating chickens and cows that were eating natural food. You were breathing air, drinking water that was cleaner. And so today, our environment, in some ways, is dangerous. It might be behind. It probably is behind the rise, this really epidemic portion of people being affected by cancer. So again, one of the benefits of having a naturescape in your yard is you're doing something good for the environment. Now, what is a naturescape? A naturescape is taking a small area in your yard and planting some wildflowers, pollinator plants, such as sunflower, aster, goldenrod, milkweed. These are plants that feed insects that are so important for our environment. There's a food chain that's critical for our environment, and by converting some of your grass that maybe you're dumping poisonous chemicals on, by converting some of this to native wildflowers, you're also helping clean up the environment. You're helping your lawn better absorb water so it just doesn't run off into the ditch and take that Roundup spray with it and spread it into our drinking water in Lake Erie. So creating an outdoor naturescape by planting these keystone plants is one thing you can do, even if it's a small area, 10 by 10 feet. Put up a bird feeder, maybe create a small water feature. And most importantly, show it off to your neighbor so maybe they do the same thing. By the way, that's a monarch caterpillar in my yard munching on a milkweed leaf. And for me, it was a wow moment. It was the first monarch caterpillar that I had in my yard. And I was pretty excited about that. So in your outdoor naturescape in your yard, what you're trying to do is create an area to practice mindfulness, to get your senses stimulated, have that wow moment from seeing something beautiful, something exciting. Listen to the bird song, hear the wind blow through the trees, smell the flowers that you've planted, touch the plants and trees and water. I don't know what you want to stick in your mouth. If you don't spray your yard, I guess you can munch on a dandelion. And so in my yard, I'm blessed to see things like a lot of bumblebees. Never been bitten. Bees that are coming in to feed on wildflowers, they're focused on food. They're not looking to cause trouble. That's a tussock caterpillar munching on a ironweed that grows in my yard. Again, just something unique, something that kind of gave me that aha moment. Now, how do you build a native plant garden near your home? If you have a cell phone available, take a picture of this slide. That link, and maybe that link can be posted on this organization's website, has an article with that title, How Do You Build a Native Plant Garden in Michigan? A Beginner's Guide. It's a great article. Another good suggestion is to do your research. One of the best books I've read this year is a book entitled Nature's Best Hope by Doug Tellamy. Also, Doug Tellamy has some wonderful webinars on YouTube to help give you some ideas. If you search the internet, you're going to find local plant sales where you can buy started wildflowers and get your hands dirty. Start planting some wildflowers in your yard. Network with others who are doing the same thing and become passionate about it. Get your family involved, get your neighbors involved. So maybe your entire block or neighborhood will have wildflower plants in their yard, and that's going to attract more and more butterflies and really cool things. Derek will put the sound on here, and this is looking out my window in my kitchen where I have my table. And this is in the winter, obviously, where my bird feeders are. To have a bird feeder set up, you need a tube feeder with some black oil sunflowers, a suet cage for the woodpeckers, and of course, in the summer, having a hummingbird feeder is very entertaining. And then sometimes you hear the sounds, you see the sights, and it's so special. Show it off to your neighbors. Now, every now and then, you're kind of have a wow experience at your bird feeder. You see something unusual, and certainly that also adds to the benefit of having this naturescape in your yard. You're attracting living creatures. And then in the summer, things are things are obviously more colorful. You're seeing things that are bringing life to your yard. I actually filmed this. Oh boy, I can't get the sound. Derek, maybe you can get the sound to go and animate this slide. But basically, it's showing how the birds are visiting my naturescape. Again, this is right off my deck, and it's seeing, you can see some of the wildflowers in the background there. And I'm trying to get that to animate, but you get the point. A lot of nice birds and different types of birds. And again, it's just very calming, very relaxing. And sometimes you're lucky enough to experience
Now, as far as
that. And then we'll mute that again, Derek. Thank you. Now, what about a water feature in your yard? That may sound like a big deal, but it really doesn't have to be. You can put in a small mini pond with a little waterfall. I just installed one at a nursing home, and it took me about 3 hours to do that. It was $80 in materials. Basically, you just need a shovel and some rocks. You can buy a pond liner at the box store for $30, and you need a $30 pump and a little bit of flex tubing, and you can end up with a beautiful small little waterfall. This is just a schematic drawing. The wooden yardstick shows you this doesn't need to be big. That's about 3 feet right there. The dirt you dig from the hole is piled up at the top, creating a waterfall. And then you put in the black liner. You lay that in the trough that you dug for your pond. You lay it into the bed of the small stream that trickles down from your waterfall, and you cover all that up with rocks. You can kind of do some rock gardening, make it look kind of cool, and voila, you have yourself a nice little water feature that's going to attract the birds. It's going to attract frogs, and insects love it. Nice thing to add to your naturescape. Now, what about an indoor naturescape? For those of you who maybe live in an apartment with no yard, or certainly during the pandemic when we all spent a lot more time indoors, you can create an indoor naturescape that can also bring nature to you. This is a picture of what I have set up in my house. You'll see Doug Tallamy's book sitting there. On the right of the slide, there's one of the small projectors that you put in your small junk drive with some of your favorite pictures you took, those wow moments that you want to be reminded about. I'm drinking organic green tea that kind of gives me that natural taste. In the back there, you see a couple things that remind me of nature, a couple things that I can touch, acorns, a deer antler, just ways to bring nature into your house. I'm pretty lucky that I have a little bit of space for this. And again, you can stimulate your senses with an indoor naturescape. Have things that have a fractal pattern, repetitive lines. A fern, for example, is a good example of something that has fractal patterns. Research has shown that if you're looking at something with fractal patterns, it's really kind of good for your brain. It's good for health benefits. The best source of sound is either to have a baby monitor, or they sell special speakers you can put at your bird feeder and bring those bird songs and chipping and sounds of nature indoors. Or on Spotify or any music source you use, look up Dan Gibson, and he puts out nature music that's just spectacular. One of my favorites is his group of songs called Solitude. Indoors, you can stimulate your sense of smell with essential oils in a diffuser. We talked about touch and taste. And so sight can be stimulated by having photographs of those wow moments. Even watching Planet Earth or some sort of nature movie has been shown to stimulate your amygdala, which is part of your brain that helps with staying calm and being more relaxed. And again, this concept of fractal patterns, you can see in that table. There's a grain, a wood grain in that. That's a fractal pattern. I'm lucky to have a fireplace there to enjoy the sound and smells from it. You can buy an indoor waterfall to get the sounds of water inside. And that's all part of an indoor naturescape that can bring these therapeutic benefits to help better deal with a battle against cancer. This is an example of fractal patterns in things you can have in your naturescape. That wood grain pattern on the vase. Have your diffuser with essential oils. Hinoki oil is an oil from that was commonly used in the Far East, and it's been researched and shown to cause the release of very healthy hormones and chemicals in your body that bring therapeutic benefits. Lavender is an essential oil that does the same thing. And so, in summary, how can a naturescape benefit someone dealing with cancer? Well, most importantly, you have ease of access to a form of therapy. Again, nature is right up there with nutrition and exercise. So you can get your daily dose of a therapy from nature. We've all experienced those mental health benefits of nature. It's a great way to practice mindfulness, get your mind off the stress of dealing with cancer, and develop a passion for nature. Plant some wildflowers from seed. Learn how to start that process in December and January and start an indoor wildflower garden, and you're ready to put those plants in the ground once it warms up. And again, you're supporting a good cause by having a naturescape. You're doing something good for the environment, which brings you that good feeling of giving back. And so again, in my yard, I get those wow moments by seeing interesting insects, again, munching on a milkweed plant. Every now and then I have a rare, unusual bird show up. This is a red-headed woodpecker that for the first time in 30 years, I saw one in my yard this past spring. And so remember that Hippocrates, the father of medicine, the Greek physician from way back, he wrote, nature itself is the best physician. And so my message to you is that nature can be therapeutic. And so make time in nature a priority. Start thinking about a naturescape. Work on an indoor naturescape, particularly for next winter. And bring family, friends, and neighbors into this and make it a group effort. And so as my last slide, I wanted to put up some resources. Again, if you have your cell phone nearby, take a picture of this. At the top, I have 3 books that give a lot more ideas on this whole concept of nature as therapy. I listed my website where more detail is in there about building a naturescape. And if you have any specific questions, send me an email. That's my email. Maybe I can give you some ideas or references to help you use nature as a therapy in your journey in battle against cancer. Good luck to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Blanda. That was absolutely inspirational. We have a few questions that I'm hoping you can answer for our audience this afternoon. The first one is it enough to sit on your front porch or your back porch for 15 to 20 minutes a day, just being outside in that atmosphere? Is that enough to help with keeping in mind nature can heal?
It's a great thing to do. The research study that showed your natural killer cells are increased was a study where people spent 20 minutes in nature. And so if your front porch offers you a view of some trees, maybe your garden or some wildflowers that you plant, that's a great way. Now, if you're out on your front porch looking at a bus and listening to your neighbor talk about Fox News or some other stressful thing in life, well, then you should go to the park or you should do more. And so, just like an integrative approach to a lot of medical conditions is better if you have more variety, I would encourage you to do more. Even walking adds that extra benefit of exercise. So sitting out on your porch can be very therapeutic. It is for me, but do more.
Thank you for that response. We have a few more questions. The next one is, do you think that being a vegan could help deter cancer cells?
Boy, I personally, first of all, it depends what you mean by being a vegan. If that means you're eating a bunch of crackers full of fructose, that's probably not a good thing. Vegetables are very healthy for you. And if you think you're getting enough protein, because protein is helpful in fighting cancer. Dr. Rogers has done research on a ketogenic diet, which is a high protein, low carbohydrate diet. And that has been shown to be helpful in fighting brain cancer, as well as other forms of cancer. So I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a vegan, but if you're eating healthy as a vegan, that's good. Now, one other thing I'll say about being a vegan is that you're doing something good for the environment. The less cows in this planet, the cleaner our environment's going to be.
Thank you for your response. We have just two more questions, I believe. How can one begin practicing mindfulness in nature? You referenced mindfulness, but where does one begin with that practice? How do you start?
The easiest way is to take a walk in the woods by yourself with no cell phone and purposefully stimulate all five of your senses. Focus on a nice sight that you see, whether it's a patch of wildflowers or a babbling brook. Focus on your hearing and listen for bird song. Maybe try to learn a few different bird songs. Take some deep breaths and see if you can sense any aroma, maybe pine needles, maybe fresh, wet soil. Touch some trees, touch some plants. Stimulate your senses and be calm, be slow. You know, I see people out in nature with their earbuds on, walking, almost running, and they're in a group of people talking so loud that, to me, that's not relaxing. That's exercise, which is important, but to be mindful in nature, do it yourself without a phone, and do it slowly and observe what's around you.
Thank you again for a great response. I have another question by one of our viewers. In Michigan, our winters are long and they're hard. Can swapping out our softer light bulbs indoors and replacing them with brighter daylight bulbs be helpful for feeling like we're out in nature?
I think that's a great idea. I do it in the winter in Akron, Ohio, and part of my indoor naturescape, I have one of those small mood lights or sun affective disorder lights. I got one for Christmas last year from my daughter who's studying to be a psychiatrist. Um, and if you swap out your light bulbs, that can be helpful. I honestly don't know a lot about that. Um, I'm kind of more focused on having LED lights that are a little more energy efficient and a little better for the environment. But yeah, focus on light. Light is good medicine. The sun is good medicine, and it's been shown that the proper artificial lighting uh, is not quite as good as the sun, but it's important.
Thank you. Speaking of sun and vitamin D and vitamin C, do you think that vitamin C infusions and vitamin D supplements or infusions could be helpful?
Oh boy, you're getting a little bit away from nature and a little bit in the medical management. I think vitamin D can be very helpful in most forms of cancer. Vitamin C infusion, boy, I'd probably defer that to Dr. Rogers. I looked into it a little bit. I'm not convinced, but I'm not an expert on that topic.
Thank you for your response. I would say to our audience with the question surrounding vitamin C and vitamin D supplements to refer to their care team for additional information regarding those, adding them to their regular routine. I think the final question we have before we end is, do you think that bringing too many plants, or how many plants would you say, bringing into the home may be a way to bring nature inside of your living space? Should there be one on your nightstand, on your kitchen countertop? Is one having one in your bathroom overboard?
Not at all. Not at all. I don't think you can have too many in your house. And, you know, there are certain, lavender is very relaxing, the scent of lavender. Bring in as many as you can, and hopefully you won't get gnats. But, you know, just having that passionate hobby, that in itself is therapeutic. Um, hey, I want to make a comment about your healthcare team. I think, Camille, what you said about talking to your healthcare provider about vitamin C is the right answer. But I also want to stress that, you know, I mentioned the integrative approach to cancer. A lot of oncologists are experts at recommending what thought and what they know is successful, such as chemotherapy or radiation or those important traditional treatments that you should take. But go beyond that and understand the importance of what I think are the three pegs of the stool that you should sit on when you're in this journey. One being exercise, one being nutrition, and the third, just as important as those two, is nature. You don't hear a lot of that from oncologists, but none of those have bad side effects, and they potentially can help you a lot.
Thank you so much, Dr. Blanda, for joining us this morning. Thank you again. We hope that you enjoyed our presentation this morning. You have left us very inspired to get outside and enjoy nature and find ways every day to bring nature inside as well as enjoy it outside in our environment. Thank you, Dr. Rogers, as well, for bringing Dr. Blanda to us. If you feel inspired to give back and make more programming like this available through the Henry Ford Cancer Institute, we invite you to join one of our Game on Cancer teams. Game on Cancer is a fun and impactful community initiative designed to alleviate barriers and challenges faced by Henry Ford Cancer Institute patients. Since 2015, Game on Cancer has raised more than $6 million, with 100% of the proceeds directly benefiting patients, research, and supportive oncology programs. Survivors, family members, and HFCI providers and staff have played a huge role in this success. Thank you very much to all of us and all of you. To make a gift, join a team, or learn more, visit GameOnCancer.com. Let us know what you thought about today's presentation by taking a short feedback survey. The link will be available after this program and also available on our Survivorship Celebration webpage, henryford.com/survivorship celebration. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.